Dear friend, as more adults divorce, more children grow up in families without two parents. Who will you choose to be with is probably the most heartbreaking question a child has to hear. No matter who you choose to be with, you will still be lacking and hurt when your family is no longer intact. In this week's program, we invite you to the story shared by Dau. If my parents divorced, which side would you choose to be on? I will stand in the middle and watch mom and dad leave. The first time I heard this question from my mother was when I was 7 years old. 7 years old, being at a carefree age, I only knew that divorce meant not living in the same house anymore. So won't moving to a new house be done? AAA, I really like moving house, Mom. When I was 7 years old was the starting point. Every year after that I received the same question, but each year the answer was different. When I was 8 years old, because of the chocolate ice cream my dad had just bought, I insisted on choosing him for a whole year. When I was 10 years old, because my mother took me out to play around the streets of Hanoi all day long, I decided to be with my mother for the rest of my life so I could go out like that every day. At 15 years old, the question is still the same. 15 years old is a bit older than a few years ago. I asked my mother, can I not get a divorce by the age of 15? I already had 2 younger brothers, one just born, the other 3 years younger. A little older, my mother still persistently asked me that question every last night of the year, but this time I no longer had the patience to answer her question, but instead became irritated and angry. Every year my mother asks, can I do it? Because of my mother's negative questions, I decided to study abroad after high school. It will definitely be like that. I left my family, friends, and people around me to go to a new sky, a new place of development, where I can do it all alone. But life is not that easy. I have problems with everything: language, culture, or studying, or even financial problems. It's not what I imagined, and it's not easy for me to overcome. I wandered around in a vicious cycle for a long time before I could stop. I chose to study abroad to get away from my mother's annoying questions, away from my father's favoritism towards my younger brother, and away from my old best friend. I choose to walk away from things that make me miserable. But I chose another kind of suffering. Far from home, I had no arms to protect me. I had to do everything myself, step out of my comfort zone to challenge and experience. If you work part-time, if it's not good, you'll be scolded; if not, you'll be fired. To receive recognition from my father and relatives, I tried my best to do everything, tried my best to go through everything alone. However, this life is always a series of challenges that will appear one after another. Presently, that day was bad. I had just spent a long day studying and working late into the night, and by the time I returned to my apartment, it was already 12 o'clock at night. I received a lot of missed calls from unknown numbers. I have never had the habit of calling strange numbers back, but my instinct told me. She's an aunt on my mother's side. She said she had booked a plane ticket for me and told me to fly home early tomorrow. As for what, she didn't say anything. But I seem to have realized, there is a story that has come to an end. I can't bear it anymore this time. I've tried to endure enough. This time I really can't anymore. Auntie, can you please don't turn off your phone? The longest voice call I ever made home was with my aunt. For 2 hours, all the difficult and bad things I had poured out. I really couldn't bear it anymore over the past years. I arrived at the airport at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There was no group of people to see me off like before. This time it was only my aunt holding a sign waiting for me in the lobby. My aunt drove me home in her old car. In the car we didn't talk at all, only the music she played was soothing to my ears. Be careful entering the house. I nodded to say goodbye to my aunt, watching her car disappear behind the gate. I had just entered the house. The house was empty, but the living room was cluttered with furniture. 2 suitcases had been folded for a long time on either side. The sofa is a bit dusty, no one has sat on it in a long time, and it's not as rutted as before. The brand new TV was placed in the middle of the living room, amidst a pile of unattractive clutter. A newly returned son from abroad was welcomed with 2 suitcases. Dad. That evening, we ate a sumptuous meal. There were many dishes on the table as if there was a party. The dining table was packed full of dishes. A farewell meal. Throughout the meal, there were stories from the past that my parents excitedly repeated, adding a few more times when they turned to me to ask questions. I didn't answer any of the questions my parents asked until that question appeared again. Because Duke is still so young, his parents will take turns taking care of him. As for me and Min, so you will have the right to choose. Yeah, have you two decided whose side you will be on yet? Mother's voice gradually faded. Her eyes did not look steadfastly at us 2 sisters again. I will choose to stand in the middle and watch my parents leave.